Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Marche, the webinar director at Advice Chaser. Before we introduce our guests and get started, I do need to do a bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by presenters are their own, and however true, funny, or interesting are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. Well, we are thrilled to bring you this educational presentation today. Attendees are muted, but we encourage you to ask questions using the chat box, and the presenter will answer those queries during or after the webinar today as appropriate. If you ask a question in the chat box and we don't have a chance to get to it, please also leave your phone number as well. We will make sure that someone reaches out to you after today's event to answer your question. We want this experience to be as educational as possible, so please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. Well, I'd love to introduce you to today's presenter. Get your picture up here. David H. Morgan is a financial advisor who offers comprehensive, holistic wealth management that connects every aspect of a client's life: financial, estate, income, and tax planning. A fiduciary advisory professional for over 27 years, David has extensive experience guiding clients towards their financial goals. His credentials include an honors degree from Indiana University, a Master of Financial Services degree from the Institute of Business and Finance, and the designation of Certified Estate Planner. He is also certified in various other disciplines such as annuities, asset allocation, investment funds, and retirement income. And away from work, David serves the community as an elder at his church. He enjoys exercising, spending time with his wife and 3 sons, and following the St. Louis Cardinals baseball and Indiana University basketball teams. And David, I'm so excited to have you here. This is going to be a great topic, and let's go ahead and get going.
Great. Thank you for that great introduction. I appreciate everybody's attendance this afternoon. Most people afternoon, maybe morning for some. The goal of this session, hopefully, is to, as we go through this information, it's tough to cover the waterfront in a condensed amount of time. My goal and hope is that you'll see something or hear something that you might not have thought about. And so, to use a metaphor from one of my clients up in Georgia, he said the goal of a good advisory team is to help peel back the layers of the retirement onion. I thought that was a wonderful way to elucidate the topic. So we're going to talk about the need for retirement planning today. And as we go through this, I'll throw in anonymous stories only, anonymous people, real stories of folks that have encountered these kind of situations. And hopefully the goal is to minimize any challenges you folks might face in this arena. So we're going to talk about the need for retirement planning because life expectancy is increasing. The market, as we know, can be very, very volatile and have a lot of fluctuations. There are the corrosive effects of inflation and taxes. And of course, with all the craziness going on in the government right now, there's pretty much a consensus those might only get worse. So also, we want to, on a personal note, make these fulfill your long cherished dreams. And again, the goal is to live a relaxed lifestyle in the community of your choice. So let's talk about these myths briefly. There's about 10 of them, the primary ones. And the first one being, I can save for retirement when it's more convenient. And I compare this kind of to like having people say, I want to wait for the perfect time to have kids. You did that, you never have any. The old adage, there's no time like now is to begin. Now it's not easy.
David, we're having a little bit of audio in and out. So why don't you go ahead and turn off your video and we'll just keep going.
Okay.
There we go.
There's that better?
Yes.
Okay. So effectively, again, we want to look at things for paying off the mortgage and paying for kids' college. You've got issues pertaining to how many years you have left before you retire. Many folks often need a bigger nest egg than they planned on. And we're also going to touch on, again, the power of returns. That's important to stress that because it's amazing how money can actually grow and compound over time. Myth number 2, boy, I hear this a lot in my practice. Mr. Morgan, I can live off my Social Security payments. Well, most studies will confirm Social Security is somewhat on the ropes. There's not a whole lot of assurance about that longevity discussion, but most Americans, Social Security is their primary source of retirement funds. And the challenge with that is Social Security benefits are often insufficient to provide the necessary income. You guys ever hear me okay?
Yeah, I think as you maybe go away from your microphone, you're coming in and out. So it's fine. Just keep going.
Okay. Right now, the average retiree receives about $1,503 a month as an income base. And basically, there are projections that they may have the slash benefits up to 20%, 15 or so. So the bottom line is it's never too late to get started to Social Security. And as a footnote, when Social Security was passed by President Roosevelt back in the 30s, designed to be a supplemental plan that lasted a couple of years. But as we all know, we're all living longer, healthier lives, hopefully healthier. And so Social Security went from being a supplement to now a primary form of income. Let's look at the next myth. Medicare will cover my medical expenses. Medicare provides affordable health insurance for doctor visits, medication, and hospitalization once you turn 65. However, it does not cover deductibles, copays, or any long-term care visits that last longer than 100 days. Lost both my parents, unfortunately, and I can assure you that my mother's had Alzheimer's. That was a very quite long, protracted ordeal. And Medicare was out after 100 days. And same story with my father. He went from assisted living to hospice, and Medicare is just a short gap type. And their projections, based on who you read, over age 65 will need some form of long-term care. People ask how you define that. It's a standard in the medical community called ADLs, activities of daily living, walking, eating, bathing, transferring, continence, ambulatory things, that sort of thing. So basically the standard is if you cannot perform 2 or more of those functions, you meet the criteria for some sort of assisted living or long-term care. So again, not a fun topic to talk about, but the reality is freight train's coming on a health level, and we need to prepare for it. And so effectively what we're suggesting is that you plan with some sort of long-term care options or self-insurance. And as a footnote, there are some wonderful new strategies in the last decade or so that have come out. They're not traditional long-term care policies. Underwriting costs, you've got COVID has really made the mortality factor worse the last couple of years. So make a note, there are some alternatives to traditional long-term care, and the acronym is ABP, or asset-based protection. Real important because candidly, it's the medical and healthcare costs that we often don't think or plan on as we get older. Myth number 4, it's too late to save for retirement. Well, the old adage, it's never too late to start. As an example, if you're 40 years old and you have $1,900 or $19,500 in a 401k, after 23 years, that will actually exceed $1 million. Well, folks may remember the old rule of 72, which simply says, I can average 7%. Going to have some years you do better, some years you may not do that. Your money literally doubles, your principal doubles every 10 years at 7% growth. So as an example, if you are 60 years old, all your houses are paid off like a house, that typically means you can save more, because typically the house is your largest source of equity and your biggest source of funds. So I guess the real takeaway here, and I can't stress it enough, no matter how big or how small, it's never too late to start for some sort of retirement planning. And also, as a footnote, I will add there are some wonderful new laws pertaining to Roth, ROTH, Roth IRAs, that are not age restrictive, generally speaking. So, yeah, make a note if that's something of interest to you. It's important to not just look at returns, but minimize the tax bite. Myth number 5, I've saved along 85. That's about my life expectancy. Well, candidly, that's not a real guarantee. Nobody knows how long they're going to live. Fastest aging population group actually is those folks that are 85 or older. And I just read that the number of centenarians is projected to double next years. So there is a realistic
say that
chance.
again. Sorry. Could you say that again?
Oh, there are all sorts of projections that centenarians, those 100 years old or more, will actually double in the next 10 years or so.
Wow, in the next 10 years. That's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. I reminded one of my orthopedic doctors, a client, said, David, the body warranty does not last forever. However, a body warranty might be gone, but we can still live long. So bottom line takeaway is average life expectancy right now across the country is about 85 for a male. For females, it's about 88 years old. So we just simply don't know. Myth number 6, I've heard this sometimes over the years. We don't know, again, how long the body warranty or how long our health will last. Our spouse's health is also a factor. My mother got sicker before my dad did, and he ended up effectively being her caretaker the last 4 or 5 years of her life. And of course, nowadays with company layoffs and downsizing, there's no guarantee, especially in the corporate world or the employment world, that the job's going to last real long as we get older. And people say, well, I go work part-time. Well, they can be more demanding. You know, folks who often end up going to Walmart as a greeter after 4 or 5 hours on their feet and realize it's a lot tougher to be on your feet in your 70s than it was in your 20s. And then finally, there's the issue of 3/4 of workers say they plan to work for retirement years. But the reality is less than about a fourth, 7% actually do so. So I know there's a big labor shortage right now. A lot of folks just simply aren't working like they did with it. The bottom line is we wish and hope and pray, but there's things often beyond our control that may not make that a realistic thing. So don't always think and hope that you can work, forever. Myth number 7, all I need is 70% of my pre-retirement income during retirement. That is basically a pretty good assumption. 70-80% of my gross income when I'm working, 70 to 80% of that is what I will expect typically in retirement. But there are huge, huge caveats or warnings about that. First off, many of us want to enjoy life, travel, see more of the world or the country. And that, of course, means that's a more expensive, active lifestyle. And again, the other wild card is, candidly, is medical and long-term. I read a recent study that said the average retiree's medical bills, prescription bills, is anywhere from on the low end $250, $300 a month, all the way up to $500 or $600. Now there are some Medicare stopgap or ways to minimize that outlay, but the old adage, we all know medicine, the costs, especially in pharmaceuticals, tend to go up as we get older, not go down. So it's just something we often don't think about. And then there's an alternative, actually. There's a budget based on your personal situation and goals. So it's real important to stress that although we typically need less to live on in retirement, we have either lifestyle or health issues that can make a huge, huge difference in how we actually end up living and spending those funds.
Just a minute here for some reason. Oh, there we go. I was having a little trouble getting over to the next slide. Here we go.
Now we all know that the old eternity, as we all heard from all of them, is not just death, but also taxes. And basically, people say, well, I'm not working now, my taxes are going to go down. Well, a couple caveats, huge caveats. One is that a 1 or 2% drop in your income may not affect your tax bracket, number one. And number two, even if you have income, you have IRAs or retirement funds starting at age 72, you've got to become taking distributions. And there's also what they call bracketing. Bracketing is a word that simply means for a single person or widowed, 34,000 or more, part of my Social Security is taxable. As a married couple, 44,000. So we all thought Social Security was never going to be taxed. Well, that's unfortunately not the case. So there's two basic brackets. 85% of your Social Security or 80% of your Social Security is subject to that taxation at those breakpoints. So my point is, you never know when a IRA might be coming due. Sometimes we get windfalls. Somebody passes away, somebody sells a property. That can affect our income or capital gains tax. And candidly, as we all know, taxes do tend to go up over time, not down. And we all know with this rate of spending that's going on, we can't continue to sustain this kind of deficit. So most economists, both sides of the aisle, know that effectively the government's going to have to start taking more money in, which means increasing taxes. So basically, after it's a safe assumption to say, okay, 80% might be a good benchmark. But please be made aware that comes to Uncle Sam, there's no guarantee. Myth number 9, after I retire, I'll protect my money by investing very conservative. You know, when you look at the world of money, there's kind of 3 silos or categories. You have bonds, you have stocks, you have liquidity instruments or bank instruments like CDs or money markets. Well, just think about this logically for a moment. If I'm 65 years old, a 30-year time horizon is very realistic. You know, late 80s, early 90s. But if that's the case, and the inflation rate, let's say, is 4%, this will actually cut your purchasing power in half over about every 18-year period. So the wild card is, you can say you're going to be invest money conservatively, but there's all sorts of risk outside of our control. There's market risk, volatility risk, all sorts of risks that are totally beyond our control. So the takeaway from this slide is, we may have conservative intentions, but many things are beyond our control. So what thing you want to think about looking at and evaluating is finding an advisory team that doesn't just talk conservative talk, but has what I call stop loss. Stop loss, kind of a fancy financial word that simply means, metaphorically, when the money Titanic gets near the glacier, you want to have life preservers or lifeguard jackets to weather that Titanic if and when it hits the glacier. So I got to tell you, many of the folks in the advisory world rant and rave about return. And I think that's important. But the flip side of that coin is to minimize the downside and the risk. I've seen this too often in my practice over the years. Another 07, 08 real estate correction, another 01, 02 correction, like the high-tech thing we had in the century, the 9/11 crash. Again, it's completely beyond our control. It takes years and years to recover. And so again, you want to look at an advisory team can minimize these drawdowns and these huge corrections. The next myth, I can plan my own retirement. And I don't know why that says number 8. I mean, that says number. I've had this asked me over the years, I'm a DIY, do it yourself. And that's a great intent. I get all that. But serious mistakes can sabotage. First off, let's cut to the chase. Human beings are by nature emotional creatures. Emotions are wonderful. You feel emotions, you fall in love, you love your dog, and that's all wonderful and good. Fortunately, unfortunately, depending on their perspective, emotions can cloud and impact how you think about money. So there's a number of studies done. Cirilli and Associates is one, that show that by having an independent fiduciary advisory team, over time, you can make anywhere from a 3 to 4 point difference in your return over time. Because an outside advisor can navigate the emotional side of us as human beings. Number 2, candidly, they just often have a lot more knowledge and information. And then I'll share with you kind of a cute series of oil franchises, quick lube places. He said, David, if everybody did it yourself. I said, what do you mean? He said, why do people come in to change their oil? They can do it at home with themselves, get their car up. He said, it's a convenience factor. It's nice to have somebody else change your oil rather than you have to do it yourself. And so there's a value added. It's not just about money, it's a convenience factor. And I compare that kind of to what we do in terms of tax, legal, and estate planning. That is, you might want to do it yourself and can have it do it yourself. Do you want to? I mean, a lot of folks simply want to enjoy retirement. And finally, we as overall stress what I call the fiduciary narrative. Fiduciary is not just a fancy legal word, but it's a word that's enforced strictly by state and federal regulators. Says you as an advisor and your team must work in the client's best interest. Yeah, I heard a cute phrase a number of years ago. It's about working on a mission, not a commission. And it's not lip service. Trust me, the regulators are very, very strict that we maintain these fiduciary standards. So the takeaway from this slide is, yes, you can do it yourself. You might have the ability, the wherewithal, the aptitude to do so. But parenthetically, we simply ask the question, do you want to? One other school of thought, and I'll just throw it out there for some thought for a second for you. People say, David, how about this? I like looking at the market. Gambling is a form of investing at times for some folks. I say, something, set aside 15, 20% of your marbles. Got 100 marbles in your investment portfolio. Take a certain percentage, what I call sandbox money. 5, 10, 15, 20% is kind of a general benchmark. But for heaven's sakes, I've seen this too often. Make sure that the bulk of your sandbox, meaning your retirement savings, are safeguarded and safe harbor by a professional fiduciary investment team. Takeaway is, it's fun to have money to play with. Have some fun on your own, but for heaven's sakes, please, again, I'm just a real conservative guy. Make sure that you have some bumper guards and safeguards to weather the latest rage. Last year was Bitcoin, it's gold in some years. There's always a fad going on. So my role as advisor is to make sure that we act with prudence as opposed to just answering it. You got another slide there?
Sorry, for some reason it wasn't letting me go. There we go. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties there. So we have some questions here, and I know that we had a little bit of audio issues, so I'll ask you to repeat something if anything goes out. Can you talk a little bit about that retirement onion? I know you gave that as the beginning. You tell us a little bit about what you mean by the different layers of retirement.
Great question. Yeah, thanks. One of the challenges I think our society as a whole and our industry in specific has is there's a lot of what I call one-trick ponies. We go to financial guy to get our financial house in order, but we don't think about the tax load, estate planning. We go to a legal team to get our affairs in order legally without thinking about the financial or tax implications. And a lot of tax people are what I call historical. They look at tax preparation and what's happened in the past year for tax bite, but they don't look proactive. They're looking in the rearview mirror as opposed to the windshield. So what I've learned over the years is that one change in one area can have a huge impact. As an example, I've worked with a lady up in Jacksonville who wanted to liquidate a bunch of her mutual funds and some stocks she'd held for a long time. They're doing very well. Economically made a lot of sense. You know, she was going to come away with a nice chunk of money. But there's some legalese and lease tax-wise. Tax harvesting is a kind of a newer thing or concept that simply says, rather than just liquidate all those large cap stocks, for example, why not do those first that are the most inefficient first and will minimize the tax load? And where a lot of advisory teams get into trouble, they don't consider either the tax consequences or the legal consequences. When I say peel back the layers of the onion, I'm referring to you have a holistic view of any one move can impact your tax situation. It can impact financial, of course, as well as the estate planning. Estate planning is a huge issue. We've seen a number of folks have to go to assisted living or facilities without foresight and realizing a lot of those assets are exposed or could be subject to attachment. So the goal of a good advisory team is to look not just at one discipline, meaning not just the finance angle, not just the tax angle, not just the financial angle, but holistically. So how we do that, and peeling back the onion, if you complete a profile, one's on financial, or it's called a risk tolerance profile, one is an estate planning profile, and then we even have a brief tax questionnaire intake. And so what we try to do is literally revise that intake form, peeling back those layers to find out what's most important to you and how we address and come up with a solution.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the answer there. You talked about APBs. Can you just maybe give a little bit more about that? And it kind of
Sure.
goes.
Great question. You know, it's interesting. You study these concepts in law school or in getting your licenses. It doesn't really drill home. Do you have a family or loved one actually go through this? I've had clients as well as own family members that have had to go to a facility, assisted living, hospice, and ABP is what they call asset-based protection. What that means very simply is in the old days, you would apply for a traditional long-term care policy. But there's some caveats. Get older, the premiums tend to go up. As you get older, you have pre-existing conditions, so the carriers may not approve. And often, candidly, the premium is very high. In states, retirees, Texas, Arizona, Florida, the premium for a health long-term care policy can be $300 to $600 a month. So rather than have people go the traditional route, there's a way to position part of your assets, not all, not most, but a portion of your estate, so that in the event you need long-term care, which again is defined as needing 2 of the 6 ADLs, activities of daily living, I can tap into a portion of my estate. And a wonderful thing about the model is, if I don't need it, I don't use it, stays with the estate. You know, insurance, whether it's a car payment for car insurance, health insurance, once I make that payment, I can't get it back. It's gone. So the asset-based protection model simply is use it or you don't lose it if you don't use it, sort of thing. So asset-based protection simply says you want to look at an advisory team. Again, it goes back to that onion. that can look at your asset base, your income base, and your total overall to make sure those assets are legally. I'm not talking about weird off the wall illegal things, that you can legally protect your estate as possible. I'm proud to say, by engaging a professional advisory team, you may not bat 1,000, but we have a very good batting average in making sure that we protect folks' assets from spend down, which is the, liquidation of your assets.
Well, thank you. I know we've had some audio in and out issues, but I think we've been able to capture a lot of the information that you brought to us today. Thank you so much, David. We're going to go ahead and end things out now. So on behalf of Advice Chaser, we want to thank David and the organizations that have worked with us to bring you this webinar today. Thank you so much for attending, and look for an email soon for a replay of this event. You're welcome to share that replay with friends and family. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. Find out more by going to advicechaser.com and clicking on the link to find an advisor. Once again, from Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming, and we will see you at another webinar soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye now.